It's value chain, I had.
I won't mention value chain. So there are two value chains.
All right. I think we start in a kind of random order, and perhaps we start talking about environment. So this is, AI is a hot topic. Environment is a very hot topic, and not only climate, but of course also a hot topic for forever, so to say, is noise, right? And I think you are based in the UK, aren't you?
I'm based in the UK. Yes, I'm based out of London. That's right.
Right. So, but there is the Netherlands is not so far from the UK, and I think there is a close relationship between aviation markets, what's happening in London, what's happening at Schiphol Airport, for instance, and there are huge changes happening, policy changes happening in the Netherlands right now because of, for instance, noise. This is one of the major features. So we're talking about, I think when we talk about climate problems in aviation, we talk about climate impact and also noise impact, of course. And now the question would be, do you think that advanced technologies, AI, can help improving the acceptance of aviation among people who are critical about aviation because of its noise and climate impact? Any view on this?
Yeah, the thing is, you speak of hot topics, and I think aviation's environmental impact is a hot topic as well. So aircraft noise affects communities near airports. I mean, that's something that has always been a challenge. And talking about climate change, you have emissions which contribute to climate change. So I strongly believe that AI is already making strides in tackling both these issues. Let's start with, let's say, noise reduction. Yeah. Today, we have airports experimenting with AI. They've been deployed solutions, piloting AI solutions to analyze flight paths, weather patterns, and noise-compliant data to recommend the best and the most efficient paths or routes. You have large airports, for instance, which use AI systems to, let's say, optimize flight paths, reducing noise over residential areas. And imagine an AI system that dynamically adjusts the route mid-flight based on real-time weather inputs, which could also minimize noise while ensuring operation efficiency. So you're connecting various dots here. And that's where I see good potential of AI, solving multiple issues at the same time. And if
so this is like ATM, right? We're talking about air traffic management here.
We're talking about air traffic management in ATC centers, in air traffic controllers, control towers. You do see this where this has been implemented. Yes.
Right. And how much of an impact can having changes in the flight path have on sort of the noise emissions from aviation?
It's also driven by regulation, there are curfew periods in airports that where you're not allowed to fly between certain periods. For instance, today, at the same time, the non-curfew airports, you do see a lot of residential areas popping up as we speak. So yes, it does have an impact because there are there have been studies that have been done where residential areas, people living close to the airports, who are prone to air traffic noise, do have certain symptoms in terms of lack of, they have sleep deprivation. They have, there are symptoms around affecting their, the intellectual capacity over a long period of time. So there are studies that has an impact overall, and I think that's one of the main reasons why the regulations are quite stringent. Around this. Yeah.
I see. So I think this is definitely one of the strengths, I would say, of these AI tools. And I think here we are talking mainly about machine learning, right? We're not talking, I think for me, from what I learned about AI is I would start distinguishing between large language models on the one hand and machine learning on the other hand.
Exactly.
And I think when we talk about flight path, we would be more talking about machine learning, right? Is that correct?
Yes, that's right. We talk about machine learning. We talk about studying patterns. And based on these patterns, the outcomes are delivered. And we can even take it a step further, because when you're looking at multiple data points, you're looking at moving to the very next level, that is deep learning, where you have scenarios across multiple models, and then try to orchestrate around those scenarios to provide the desired outcome. So yes, at large it is machine learning, and AI is an overused word. It is but in this case you're exactly right. It's all about pattern recognition and optimization. So we purely work on machine learning models today.
So what is deep learning exactly? So it's like an advanced form of machine learning. Is this how you would put it, or?
So how do I put this? Imagine deep learning as a smart detective with many layers of magnifying glasses, right? So each layer looks at information a different way. So one might spot colors, others shapes, others patterns, and so on. The more layers, the deeper the detective can go to figure things out. So that's what deep learning is. In technical terms, I would say it's a type of artificial intelligence that uses something called neural networks, which are inspired by how our brain works, the human mind works. So those networks have, again, many layers. And each layer helps AI to understand complex problems, recognizing patterns. Example is recognizing faces in photos, translating languages, or even driving cars. So if you talk about self-driving cars today, they work on neural networks.
Right.
And an example is like, when you upload an image to social media, it automatically tags your friends' faces, and that's deep learning in action.
Right. And how, everyone is talking a lot about the advances made in AI. So I guess that also applies to deep learning. There are, huge steps forward taken in developing these like deep, maybe the number of layers or the sophistication of each layer, I guess. Perhaps even, I guess if you have different layers, you have sort of aggregate. So you have to think about weights, how to, what is the importance of one layer relative perhaps to the other layer? Is this?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and
good
that's where the
description?
orchestration, I mean, that it has various facets, like it's about what data point do you prioritize? Among the data points, what is the most accurate one that you pick up? And then you have different, when you talk about layers, you talk about imaging, for instance, you talk about voice assistance, you talk about, natural language processing. So you do build those layers on top to provide the desired outcome. Depending upon the data points available, how you can orchestrate between these layers and come with the desired outcome is where deep learning is going today. And that's where even LLMs come into the picture, which basically, LLM can be very specific to industries or domains. But then when you have multiple LLMs, how do you orchestrate them to make sense of the desired outcome? So I think
So the deep layers can be sort of combine machine learning algorithms with also large language models.
Exactly. And, it's so when you talk about deep learning, we always speak of multimodal. So that is models that can process and generate content based on different data types. So it could be images, it could be text, it could be audio, it could be video. And this enables applications, or like text to image generation, robust content generation, pushing the boundaries. What you see with ChatGPT today, what LLMs does, you drop in a document, it summarizes it for you. So that's where you see a small minor versions of deep learning, but then of course it's taking it further. And when you talk about industry specific deep learning, there's a lot of strides done in healthcare, for instance, and medical imaging. I think today deep learning algorithms can diagnose diseases from medical images with accuracy which surpasses human expertise. So that's the advantage, and I see the implications in aviation as well.
But I think there is another issue with aviation, but I thought we get to this a little later when it comes to sort of safety, because there are some real, or maybe we talk about this now. We go, or wait a second. So maybe in order to stay structured, relatively structured in the discussion, because we started with environment, and we talked about noise. And with noise, how can you sort of have, for a given number of flights, how can you, by adjusting the flight path, for instance, have a lower noise level than otherwise, so to say. I think that is something, and you also, I think you also mentioned, or I guess what it also does, it affects fuel consumption. And fuel consumption, of course, has to do with greenhouse gas emissions and also non-CO2 emissions. So because, aviation is having a climate impact because it emits greenhouse gas emissions, but also because it creates those contrails in the air, which also contribute to climate change. And now, so I guess flight path optimization can also have some effect on fuel consumption, and in this way also help to protect the climate. And are there other ways in which these technologies can help us?
I think you did mention fair points around fuel consumption. I mean, that's fuel optimization has two impacts. One is it helps manage sustainability, and it also helps reduce costs. And I think a lot of airlines today, and even the manufacturers today, they spend they invest a lot on managing fuel optimization. And the AI, that's where AI comes in, which helps optimize fuel consumption based on various factors, based on aircraft weight, weather conditions, air traffic data that comes in to see what is the most optimized route that the flight can take. If you look at some of the major airlines in the US, for instance, after applying AI for fuel optimization, have saved close to around $500 million annually, which is a significant saving that's done. And
Right.
It also, in a way, has an impact on sustainability. Now that you mentioned about contrails, that's a very interesting part. And, those white streaks in the sky that, they tend to trap heat and they significantly contribute to aviation's warming effect. Now, and that's where I think you do see different tech partners working with aviation to help reduce those strains. I think there was this initiative by Google with American Airlines. They use AI for contrail prediction and avoidance, and which basically Then that basically.
So Google and American Airlines. This is a little bit surprising for me because that's the US, and it seems to me that. My general impression would be, when it comes to advances in the climate impact of aviation, especially also via non-CO2 emissions, actually, I would say the US is not the place I would expect that to happen. So that's very interesting, actually.
Yeah, that's quite interesting. But that said, even in Europe, for instance, Eurocontrol is driving certain initiatives around the space, and they're trying to share basically. Consolidate knowledge across the networks to provide and share information to manage this reduction. And I think what Google and American Airlines have achieved is, I think, close to 54% in contrail reduction during the trials.
54%. 54. 54.
54,
so
yes.
That's like more than half. That's a lot.
That's a lot in the trials, and that shows really good promise in the space. And I think this is going to be. I think it's clearly scalable, and it's something that at least Europe is looking quite. I think they're investing quite a bit through Eurocontrol. You do see that. You do see some changes in Southeast Asia as well. Singapore, for instance, is also driving such initiatives in their aviation space and helping and supporting their neighborhood as well.
Interesting. And you mentioned partners, and you mentioned Google and American Airlines. And if I may say, the reason why we have this podcast right now is because you gave the guest lecture at the Toulouse Business School. And I also a frequent visitor of the Toulouse Business School, and you are a guest lecturer over there.
Yeah.
And we actually we did a study tour with my students. We went to Toulouse and we visited Open Airlines. And Open Airlines, I think, is also doing some of the things that you have just mentioned. So I was just wondering, do you have some connections to them?
Well, I haven't. I haven't worked with them, but I've been following their initiatives. And I think they do have a delivery center or I think it's called a competence center with various tech providers who are members and participate in initiatives around sustainability, I believe. And they do. I think they have a new chapter on AI as well. But yeah, I've not been deeply involved so far. But
I see.
I am keeping a watch though on what they're doing, and it's quite interesting.
I was just guessing because I thought you have a close connection to Toulouse, and they are, I think, based in Toulouse. So either it was just, and then they do work on, if I remember correctly, quite a bit on also helping airlines improving their fuel consumption in the sense that helping to reduce fuel consumption by optimizing their operations.
I think the main initiatives revolve around manufacturing. Predictive maintenance, I think, is one of the key aspects as well, because it's Airbus's hometown. So I think it's clear that they're also working with them, and of course I think. I think they're more focused on European clients to begin with, based on the initiatives. What I know of so far.
Right, and I think talking about Airbus, I think that was also an issue that I wanted to, talking about how manufacturers sort of can perhaps benefit from, or how they try to take advantage of AI and so on. But so when we talk about, but let's are we sort of finished with the environment? So we talk about noise. We talked about kind of climate, and then optimizing like the fuel consumption. Is there any other way in which AI or these technologies could sort of help improving the environmental performance of aviation? Is there something that we miss, or do you think like noise and climate, these are really like the main points?
Noise and climate are the main points, and I think one area is around SAF. I think sustainable aviation fuels, and I think there's a lot of research around the space and the use of AI, because what they do is they use AI today to assess feedstock data or production methods of aviation fuel to identify and scale sustainable use of aviation fuels efficiently. And I think that will be one of the game changers for carbon neutral flights in the future. So that's another area which is quite interesting, I think, where we see some good potential for impact.
I see. So that's interesting, because I think one of the I would say, hurdles associated with the use of sustainable aviation fuel. People talk a lot about sustainable aviation fuel, and there are very high hopes. But I think feedstock is really one of the crucial factors. And what you're saying is basically with these kind of more advanced technologies, either we can, with a given feedstock, we can make better use of this, or even we can find smart ways in increasing the feedstock that is available to us for the production of sustainable aviation fuel. Right.
Indeed,
now.
Exactly. Yeah.
Interesting. So this is certainly something that I feel is very important. Yeah. And so talking about, so now sort of we are moving from environmental cost to like cost of aviation stakeholders, that airlines, also aircraft manufacturers, perhaps airports, airports, of course, infrastructure costs are very important. Labor costs are a major factor.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So if we talk about airports, what do you think? Where could be the impact of AI and these new technologies? What is the main advancement that we can expect from AI to, or maybe even happening already, that is going to change how airports will be operating in the future?
I think it's one of my favorite topics to discuss, AI, aviation, and airports, because I lead the data and AI product portfolio within Amadeus, and the focus on airlines and airport operation solutions. And clearly, I've been in the airport space and in the airport domain for over a decade now, and in aviation over a decade. So it always excites me, and with what AI is doing today, I think it's going to play a significant role.
So what is it that you think is so exciting about? I mean, I'm excited about aviation for sure. What is it that makes you would feel excited about aviation?
I mean, the thing is, aviation is one of the domains which connects people, cultures, and economies, right? And
right.
And this is one thing which I really like. I think it's one single domain where a domain that promotes collaboration, and that's something is a need of the hour in the AI space today. What you see in AI globally, it's getting very siloed. It's getting very competitive. It's getting very closed. Where you have US building their Rolls-Royce AI engines, and then you have China who's looking at scalability. You have India who's working on being more creative because of the dynamics of the market. But when you look at other industries, yes, you see the lack of collaboration there. Where in travel and aviation, I think the different players will be forced to collaborate, because here they would want to share information, share insights, and siloed way of working will not help. So I see aviation playing a critical role in managing collaboration around AI. Now, when you jump down to, let's say, infrastructure and aircraft manufacturing,
can I just say one word? Because I think this is the point that you have just mentioned, I think, is a very important one. And this is the contribution of aviation to how people interact with each other across the globe. And I think this is very important. And I also think that this is the reason why we don't want to give up on aviation. So the solution to, managing the climate impact of aviation, I feel should not be we should not fly. I think it should be, okay, so let's make flying green. Let's, manage and protect the climate, but don't stop, fly and protect the climate at the same time. That should be. I think this is should be the.
I mean, I like the tagline. It should be on a T-shirt. Make flying green. And
excuse me?
No, this should be on the T-shirt. The quote that you said, make flying green. That's the main objective. End of the day. So and clearly, I mean, you're not going to stop flying. I mean, travel. I mean, we've always been explorers as humans. So that's not going to stop us from exploring. I think it's just that we have to change our mindset. Look at directions where we focus more on sustainability, and I think we are going to be there. I mean, we're already seeing changes. We're already seeing how manufacturers have evolved their aircrafts today to manage fuels more sustainably. You have the Airbus Neo aircrafts today, which are much more sustainable than what they were a couple of years ago.
In terms of fuel consumption, but I think also in terms of noise, right? I think their noise impact is also has quite reduced quite dramatically over time.
Indeed, exactly. So I think we are in the right direction. We are in the right path. And I think what AI would do is to help us accelerate quicker towards achieving those goals.
So how can AI and these technologies help airports because some airports are in a good financial position, I would say, if we talk about, airports that are based in very important cities, and I'm sitting in one and you are sitting in another, I feel then this is, you are in London based, I'm in Hong Kong, and so, but still it doesn't mean that we have around 3,000 like civilian airports around the globe? Is this the order of magnitude?
That's the order of magnitude, and you're going to have one airport popping up in India every month now. So it's a big, it's a big space.
So, but the point is that we have many airports that are not necessarily in such a, I would say, comfortable financial situation, and all airports need to, if airports can be reducing the cost, that means that they don't need to charge as much to cover their cost, which means that flying can be cheaper, or it can be greener, or there are lots of things. So I think thinking about what is the impact of how can we reduce airport cost? How can these technologies help reducing airport cost or dealing with labor shortages? Right. I think this is also I think with many airports that's a big problem. I think that would be, I feel, where many have high hopes when it comes to these AI advanced technologine's. Is that correct? Should they have high hopes, or is it maybe
of course.
optimism?
The thing is, I think, in fact, post-COVID, airports have begun to realize efficiency is key, and the cost reduction is quite critical. And I think they've been more forward-leaning in terms of investing in upgrading the tech stack and being open to technology as well, because the industry generally they still rely on a lot of legacy systems today. Now, when you talk about airports, they're complex ecosystems. There are many moving parts, right? So they have gates, they have baggage handling systems, they have security checkpoints, and a lot of this inefficiencies can be costly for an airport. So that's why we see AI playing an important role, because AI can help optimize these processes by analyzing, what does the passenger flow look like? How do you optimize the flow, and how does that impact resource utilization in real time? So let's say today we are delivering systems where we tend to optimize passenger flow. We collect data from all corners of their operation, from ground access, terminal to airside. We get data from urban transportation. So if you have let's say data coming in from Transport for London, where there are significant delays in the Heathrow Express, which brings in passengers from the city to the airport. Now you know that, based on your forecast, you expected a peak time at between 11 to 12 noon, but now you're going to have a delayed peak time because of real-time intelligence and information that you have. So then you can tweak your resource allocation accordingly, manage your optimization and utilization, saying,
and that's happening right now. Is this already happening? Yeah, that's already happening.
It's happening, and a lot of airports have started to implement and adopt, and they're moving towards the direction today.
It also kind of highlights what you mentioned, the importance of collaboration.
Exactly.
Because travel is, we travel in networks, and it's not just one mode of transport. It's not that you live at the airport and work at the airport or at another airport. So basically you live in the suburbs or you live in the city center, and then you have to go to some other place that is somewhere else. And in order to do that, you need to use different modes of transport. And that is where sort of, at least one example for the importance of collaboration. What you're saying is basically that there is some close collaboration, for instance, with public transport and airports, and in order to sort of optimize these.
And it's an interesting point that you mentioned is collaboration, and talk about collaboration, talking about data collaboration. And in the industry in general, there has always been a siloed approach. There's a lack of trust in sharing data between different partners and stakeholders within the ecosystem. That is changing. We are seeing more openness to sharing data because thanks to upgrading our tech stacks, which provides that governance and providing transparency in how the data is used. And that's where we come in. So
what you're saying is you can ensure that you can do all this stuff, but do not violate any privacy
Privacy, exactly.
concerns.
Exactly. Violate any privacy, ensure that the data is used for the right purpose, and it's clearly monitored, and make data acquisition easier. Clearly justify the value on why the data has been shared. There's mutual benefit for the partners in the ecosystem. So that's where
So does that work? Does that work? Would you say it's really people don't need to be concerned about this kind of data sharing because it's safe?
Exactly, it is safe. And the thing is, with data sharing in general, privacy, security is one of the most important focus areas for any tech company today, including ours. We focus on privacy and security, and and today I think even when you talk about passenger flow efficiencies and operations, you don't need personal data, right? You just need operational data, which has nothing to do with PII. So,
right. I mean, if there's a passenger, if there's a train stuck somewhere, it doesn't matter whether it's all female or male or
exactly.
Right? It doesn't really matter. The only thing you need to know is how many people are stuck. Right.
Exactly. That's exactly the point here, and I think that's the justification you need to give to the stakeholders who own this data, as well as and end of the day, it is the end customer who's the passenger who owns their private data. So the thing is, we don't share personal information. It's only aggregated data that is shared in terms of collaboration. And
so what you are saying is that people that sort of there is an increasing willingness to engage in these kind of collaborative approaches with respect to data sharing. Is this what you are?
Yes, yeah, and exactly, and at the same time, we do have checks and balances everywhere. I mean, you have the GDPR, you have the EU AI Act, which is enforced. So all our systems comply to these policies.
But you have would you say that because very often we talk about Europe lagging behind. We just had another podcast where you say, oh, AI lagging behind. But then I think when it comes to regulating AI, would you say they are going ahead? Or are they also perhaps rather, maybe lagging behind?
Well, the two aspects to it. One is, yes, the regulation and the act that was enforced came in late. I mean, it's a no-brainer. Everyone knows about it. They couldn't keep up to the speed of how AI has evolved. And I think they're still catching up.
But this is true in general, right? Because the developments were just globally. So, fast. I mean, you basically, even if you wanted to, you were not able to, keep up, right?
Exactly, and the thing is, of course, they're working towards it. But in some regions, of course, these regulations are quite stringent, which also, in a way, can slow down innovation. And what I've seen recently is a lot of the regulatory bodies have realized that as well, based on feedback provided by the member nations, the industries, where they said, okay, we need to probably take a step back and take a better look on how we could manage regulation more efficiently without impacting innovation. Because what might apply in Europe might not be valid in Middle East, where and then you have and those countries and the regions can have a better benefit of the data that's used. At the same time, I do see that countries globally look up to Europe in terms of regulation. What happened with the GDPR, for instance, a lot of countries and nations globally use the same template to get inspiration from the template to deploy their own privacy and security policies. So we do see that, but at the same time, regulators should ensure that it doesn't stop or slow down innovation and force nations within Europe, for instance, to lag behind other countries globally.
Right. And but getting back to collaboration, because I think this is this is always what I tell to my students. You have the airlines, the airports, and they may be fighting, but one without the others, nothing. You have to collaborate. It's just otherwise you are not. It's not working. So at the end, you need to find a good way of working together. That's very important. And I think what you described right now is an example where airports are collaborating, for instance, with public transport providers. But how about airports and airlines, for instance? How is that going?
So the thing is, yes, look, there's always been a lack of trust in the past. And again, this goes back to some of the fundamentals. It's all about transparency, privacy, governance, which was always lacking. So they would not trust sharing data. Like you won't have the right people talking to each other around data collaboration. Sometimes what would happen is the data collaboration from the airport side is driven by operations, but then you have the commercial teams on the airline side speaking to them, and they don't understand the mutual benefit. So there's some fundamental issues that were there in the past are still there today, but we do see things changing. We do see.
So are there different stakeholders are more aware of the mutual benefit that they can achieve? So is that sort of has the mindset changed? Would you say?
The mindset has changed a lot. You're right. The mindset has changed a lot, especially post-COVID. I think they realized that collaborating is quite critical. But again, there's always we still see resistance because I think one of the main challenges is the technology, which lacks in enabling that confidence, right? So that's where we are working towards. I think we see, and based on what we are currently working with our clients and partners, we are enabling that and helping motivate the stakeholders within the aviation ecosystem by providing them the right technology to enable collaboration, provide enough transparency and governance processes in place, the checks and balances to motivate the players within the ecosystem to share and collaborate. There's more.
So can you give some example for some particularly successful collaboration that has happened that sort of stick to your mind? I don't know wwhether you can share this kind of an example with us that you thought, oh my goodness, this is so great that this could happen.
It's quite interesting, but I won't take names here, but we had some recent collaborations where we have a large airline having a fundamental problem around operation efficiency where the data rests with the airport. And we got the airport and the airline onto the table, and we said, okay, guys, listen, you guys discuss what is it that you want to, what are your common problems? And when they start speaking, I think they realize that, yes, we mutually have issues, but then there's certain data assets that you have that could be utilized by us airports to provide, to improve our operation efficiency, at the same time provide better passenger experience for your customers. And we have certain operational data that can be utilized by the airlines to optimize their operations, improve their standard operating procedures, for example. And it was what is interesting is the mindset is towards trading data. Then say, okay, fine, I want this data, you have it. I'll give you data assets X, you give me data assets Y. And
interesting.
And we clearly see the collaboration, right? Before, and in the past, it's always been, no, we can't share, everything is commercially sensitive, we can't share these data sets. That has been the attitude before. But we've seen this transition in the last year. And I think some of the use cases that we have been working on around operation efficiency and passenger experience has been quite interesting. And
passenger experience would be, for instance, it would be network scheduling. I guess it could be
passenger
delayed.
Experience is more from the airport perspective, right? So how do you know? Because the thing is, because a lot of the data, let's say around passenger behavior is with the airlines. So this is not again keeping privacy and GDPR in mind. It's not about sharing PII data, but the right assets to ensure that the passenger, based on passenger behavior, we can provide them a seamless experience at the airport. So it really impacts how do you manage your resource allocations. I'll give you a simple example. When you have a flight to Malta, for instance, around summertime, there was a general trend in certain airports where there was a lot of passengers would not use self-service but go and check in at the manual check-in desks. And that will create a lot of bottleneck. And that's when they realized, based on demographics, you have a lot of retired people who would who fly down to Malta because they got, let's say, property there, or they have a summer, they want to spend the summer there. So they changed their resource allocations for those specific flights, saying, okay, we'll have more manual check-in counters than service. And that really changed. And that data.
I see.
So the thing is, even the demographics, it's aggregated as long as you're within the guardrails of GDPR. That information is valuable enough to provide a seamless experience, ensure the passenger experience is frictionless. At the same time, ensure that the operations are smooth. There's no delayed boarding. There's no impact on the on-time performance of the flight. So there's a mutual benefit for the airport, for the airline.
Right. I mean, I think this is a great example, actually. Very, very nice. I think this is a very illustrative way of seeing how this kind of data sharing can really make an impact. So that is very interesting, I think. Yeah. So now we talked about airports and public transport. We talked about airports and airlines. So, I think we mainly talked about also kind of passengers, but I also like to think in terms of cargo, actually, because when you think about these are there some similar collaborations that you think are playing out with cargo airlines or shippers, logistics companies? Are they?
Well, yeah. The thing is, I wouldn't be able to comment much on logistics and cargo because that's not my expertise. But what I can probably speak of is baggage management in airports, because I think that's another critical aspect. Right. And that's another area. It's one of the major hurdles that airlines and airports face. There are a lot of the high costs involved in mishandled bags by airlines, which they have to. And a lot of these costs go towards compensation costs to the passengers, and dissatisfaction.
I had actually, it was very interesting for me. For me, it never happened. I was wondering, I hear people talking about it, but then in 1 year, I think it was not last year, maybe last year or the year before last year, I had like 3 times my baggage got lost, and I mean, it's sort of managed. But of course, it's not something that you that you appreciate. I would say.
That's where,
so if you can avoid that, definitely.
Exactly, and that's where technology comes in, and even AI comes in to ensure that how can airlines and airports be more proactive in managing missed bags. I mean, it's going to happen. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, disruption is something that's not avoidable, but it can be better managed.
So how much can you, because before you give some impressive number that you could, I think, was it contrails that you reduce them by you cut them in half or more than half? Now, if you think about the, new technology, advanced technologies in terms of baggage handling, can they also improve the performance, let's say by 50%? Or is it? Or we talk about 5%, 10%?
I mean, I would go around the 5 to 10%. 10% would be really great. But even a 5% is a big improvement.
It's a big number. It's a big number. I mean, 50% is, unbelievable. I would say 5 to 10 is very strong, because it's a very substantial. I would say.
And it's again baby steps, right? So when you start solving the fundamental issues, then if you reduce the number of mishandled bags, eventually you're going to reduce compensations in a significant manner. So, and again, that also comes with a lot of aspects around best practices, and there are other aspects which revolve around the baggage journey. And with bags is that you have different hands as far as the baggage handling. Your bag goes to different touch points within the airport, from your source destination to the from the source to the destination. So there's an exchange of multiple hands, different providers, vendors. Again, you're talking about data silos here, where they don't share data among each other. So you don't have data from the baggage handling system shared with the airline, or vice versa, or with the airport. So it's all again about how do we stitch this data, create a digital thread across the baggage journey, to clearly assess, okay, how do we be more proactive in baggage management? How do you alert a passenger saying that your bag is not made it to the flight? So do not wait at the baggage carousel on arrival, but rather we'll have your bag shipped at your address. So that way it reduces the frustration. That the last thing I want is I wait in the baggage belt for 1 hour and then stand and queue up at the lost and found and get frustrated. So that's something that airports want to stop and manage better. And that requires data sharing and collaboration, end of the day, between different stakeholders within the ecosystem.
Right. So talking about getting back to the point of labor shortage, because I really feel that this is something, do you agree this is a big topic for airports?
It is a big topic for airports. It's been one of the most challenging ones, let's say, that they face on a seasonal basis. So it's something, and they have their own standard operating procedures around this as well, and how to deal with it. And in Europe, you don't know about strikes and by unions and others, which they need to also consider when they manage resource utilization. So yes, it is clearly a problem for airports today.
So what do you think is the contribution that these technologies, what is I wouldn't necessarily think about, because there's a labor shortage. It doesn't necessarily mean that you invest in these technologies and therefore have less staff. It's just that with the given stuff, you can just do what you need to do. And without that, you can't do what you think you need to do, right? I think this is perhaps the way to think about that. Would you agree?
I think, yeah, exactly. And I think, the thing is, again, going back to cost efficiencies, when you speak of cost efficiency, a lot of this is already managed today. Once we are able to predict efficient passenger flows at the airport on a regular basis, that translates to resource utilization. So how many how many resources, human resources, you're required at a specific time, and also the impact. Do we have and build those backup plans if needed. So the predictability is where AI comes into the picture to help plan better. We can also look at probably task allocation and automation, which is quite critical as well. I think in the space, there are a lot of business processes today which can be automated. How do you dispatch or monitor multiple flights? Can it be done automatically? To what extent do you need human interference? That way you at least free up a lot of time, and then staff can focus on much more critical roles. How do you automate repetitive tasks within the airport space? I mean, those are the areas where tech can basically assist. The other aspect of disruption management is very critical, because that's when
disruption management.
Yeah, that's where they are really hit, right? You can have unexpected delays due to weather events, for instance. You can have sudden
or electric. You have some electric.
Well,
what was it, like a blackout in London Heathrow just recently?
Heathrow. Yeah, that unfortunate incident that happened, which was it was quite an impact, and the loss is quite significant. You're talking about a major airport.
We do. So, I think I was underestimating the number of passengers. I just looked it up. I think in 2024 they had 82 million passengers. 82 million passengers. Above 80 million. And I thought that the biggest European, I call it a European airport. I mean, I thought it would be around maybe 74 or something. So I was actually surprised to see that London Heathrow had the numbers were well above 80 million, actually. So I thought it's quite impressive, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. And
even only 2 runways, right? Because they were thinking, there has been this discussion about the airport expansion.
Quite some time. It's been
quite some time ago. But the point is, you have basically 2 runways and still well above 80 million passengers. And I feel this is also one of I think the air traffic management should also be playing a big role here.
Exactly. I mean, the demand and capacity management is critical, and that is where you need intelligence to manage it more efficiently. Now, if you just go to Heathrow, if you look at the number of aircrafts landing, I mean, back to back. I'm not too sure what is but it's in a matter of seconds. You have airlines landing. It's crazy. I mean, if you in most peak periods, you see a chain of flights coming in. So yes, I mean,
world class. I think this is like world class. I think this is one of the places where this is kind of organized in the most, I would say, effective, efficient, perhaps way.
Yeah. I mean, and you see this in a lot of other airports as well. You look at Mumbai Airport, for instance, and the airport in Changi, Singapore. I mean, and Hong Kong. They're doing a great job in terms of efficiency and optimization. And I mean, getting back to the subject around resource and staff shortages, for instance, we do have some airlines though who automate staff allocations more efficiently. So now, how do they manage their overall? How do they optimize their workflows? Their workforce planning across, let's say, ground services, maintenance, cargo. So again, they use technology there to manage the optimization. So they clearly have they can really detect outliers well in advance because when they start planning the plan, they do it strategically, and they do pre-tactical planning, which is in a week or like in a couple of weeks to a week of operations. And the more data sets they have, and more intelligence they have in terms of forecast, the better equipped with managing such events.
And I think one of the, you mentioned disruption management, but I think when we talk about the normal operations, I think one of the important features at airports, at least to my own travel experience, it seems, is like this face recognition, right? This is something I feel has some important impact also on the labor that may be required, because I think using face recognition can make certain processes much more smooth. At least this is my to my own experience. For instance, Hong Kong, when I board the plane, I don't need to scan the boarding pass, but they scan my face and then I pass through. This is much faster, so I feel there's an issue. But then, of course, we are again back. Of course, when we talk about face recognition, people are just sound the alert and say, "Oh my goodness, I don't want to have my face recognized." And so,
and then again,
what would you say to them?
I mean, that's biometrics end of the day, and I think it's very clear. I mean, if you talk about biometrics, the data that passengers use, I mean, when they scan their faces, it's saved in their own phone. It's locally saved. It's in the app, so it's not something that is shared in the cloud. And then whatever the validation checks are done, it's all done based on hash metrics. So it's not something that the data is not going anywhere. The images are not shared in the cloud. So it's all controlled. So
and you can be sure that that's handled this way.
Yeah, it is, and I think that's something that all the providers, including us, we provide biometric solutions, and that's something that we keep insisting. Like privacy and security is the foremost focus, and your data is your own. It's not going anywhere. Right. So I think that's been a common message. And you see people who are not confident enough, they're using these tools, and they are.
How much faster can it make, like, the whole, let's say, process from, let's say, checking in the luggage to boarding the plane? What do you think? This kind of face recognitions. Do you have like some idea? Does it save like 5 minutes or is it 20 minutes?
So I have a personal experience from boarding to gates. Like in Mumbai, for instance, I made it in 12 minutes.
Wow, that's very fast.
From pre-security to gate, in 12 minutes. Yeah. So
okay. I would say that's, very fast.
That's fast, yeah. Of course, you might have friction. Probably I was lucky at the security touch point, which was more seamless, but then that is one bottleneck that you cannot avoid. But overall, there are the other, we had the Passenger Terminal Expo last week, and which is one of the major events for airports. We have over 200 airports and over 50 to 60 airlines who attend the event, where we showcased our solutions, and yeah, we spoke about seamless travel. It's just that once you register your biometrics, you have your data on your phone. You just walk through all the touch points. You don't take anything out. You just walk straight.
So how do passengers, what is the, how would you, do passengers primarily appreciate the convenience that comes with it, or are they more concerned about the privacy issues? What is your feeling about that?
I think what we have noticed is more convenience. I think they are ready to share. They're not sharing data. That's one thing you should know. They permit the use, but the thing is, the data does not go anywhere. It is localized in their phone, in their app. So
so this is my ignorance. This is just because I'm not so well trained in using this vocabulary.
No, that's right. No, that's clear. So, you're right, and that's one thing which we keep insisting, and that actually brings the confidence for passengers to be able to use these solutions. So I mean that's one thing. And again, you have regulations as well, keeping checks and balances globally. AI Act, for instance, forbids you to use biometric and facial recognition information for AI. So it's a clear no, right? So which is a good regulation to have, to be honest. It's something that I think it's also about educating the customers clearly, and I think that's going to be the way travel is going to evolve in the coming years.
Is it only the big airports that are going to benefit from this, or also the small airports? Because I made that distinction before. Most of the airports are relatively small, although, of course, the big airports really handle most of the traffic, right? So they're clearly very important. But would you say that, relatively speaking, will it also help the smaller regional airports really sort of staying over water? I'm not sure this is a good way of describing it, but improving their financial situation.
The thing is, it's all about operational efficiency end of the day and passenger experience, because they are looking at NPS. Okay, so there are two aspects. Airports are also competitive. When I look at London, for instance, you have London City, you have Gatwick, we have Heathrow. They all compete. They also look at their NPS scores. So they're also competing. They also want to provide seamless experience. At the same time, they want to keep their operation costs low. So they all have the motivation to move towards this tech. And at the end of the day, today, what is not mainstream will become mainstream eventually in the next 5 to 7 years. When you looked at biometrics, for instance, pre-COVID, we thought it's a 5 to 7 year plan, but it became a few months, biometrics was something that happened within overnight when COVID happened, because you had to go touchless. Right? So it was, the thing is, I think it will become mainstream eventually, irrespective of the airport size moving forward. But again, the benefits are, of course, with mid to large size airports who will see the benefits immediately. Yeah.
So I can tell. I think what you mentioned is in the past that you sort of have a heavy. Maybe I'm overstating that a little bit, but you sort of have a sort of special interest, perhaps in airports. Is that? Did I understand correctly? Is it a good way of describing it? Because I was also thinking about perhaps talking about airlines and thinking about how would these technologies perhaps affect ticket prices, because I think it's not obvious at all. Because I think for some passengers, having a more intelligent system would mean that airlines understand that these passengers have a higher willingness to pay, and that also maybe charge more. Whereas if it helps reducing cost and handle being more effective competitor, then I think it could also have a negative effect on ticket prices, which would of course be appreciated by passengers like me. And if you would have a guess on how these technologies would be affecting ticket prices, would you think it's rather, not a big effect, or maybe it can have some...
yes, of course. The thing is, it's not just about... end of the day, I think we should map that to value. So yes, if it's what does the end passenger or customer, what is the value that the passenger gets? And that's where, if you look at dynamic pricing today, it's not something new. It's been going on. The airlines have been using it for quite some time now. Probably they started off with business rules.
So would you say that there is no big, with these kind of changes or improvements in AI, that yield management techniques sort of have not made a big jump? Do you, or would you say this?
What's happening is there's going to be a major shift, and that's something that Amadeus is also playing a critical role, is to move towards a retailing transition on travel. So we're moving away from the standard way of ticket purchases and use of legacy systems. I mean, the PNR that you see, the passenger name record, is going to be of the past. We are moving towards something called the order and offer world, which is much more closer to what e-commerce offers today. Like in Amazon, when you book items, you have one order ID. And that's what is going to happen today, like tomorrow, is that a lot of airlines have already started to implement it on our side. And we're moving towards a much more order offer world. Where
these technologies that we are talking about right now, help facilitating moving these changes. Is that correct?
These changes, exactly, yes. And the thing is, and then when you add AI on top, what happens is you can make that experience more personalized for the passenger. Because now you have data sharing, you have consistency in how data is shared between between suppliers and partners more efficiently. So you can personalize offers and orders. So in a way, you provide better experience, better value to the passenger. At the same time, you have you provide commercial excellence for the airlines. So that is the benefit. And today,
as for me as a passenger, I will always I see both sides. I see personalization is I feel it's good because it helps me it makes it easier for me to find perhaps what's good for me, but I still would be a little concerned that maybe then also I will be charged perhaps a much higher price than I would have been charged otherwise.
Well, I mean, it depends, because with personalization, there are a lot of benefits out of this, because based on the history of the traveler, like let's say you were disrupted by an airline once, and then now you're traveling after a month or so, and if they already have this information, they can offer you better discounts on some offerings during your travel experience. So
it's sort of make up for what they messed up.
And that
maybe.
So, and that helps with loyalty, and and that's something that. You can't. You don't have the visibility as much today because of the legacy technology that exists, and that prevents us from using data more efficiently, data assets more efficiently. So I think that's where the benefit is. So it's not about just about high prices. Even affordability is so there. With reducing costs and improving cost optimizations, end of the day, it also helps making ticket prices more affordable. And again, you have the market where you have to be competitive. So that's where dynamic pricing comes in to provide your competitive offers. At the same time, personalization can help you get the experience that you deserve. So that's that's where we see how data can be used.
So it's complex. I think this is sort of something that we can say. Yeah. Let me. All right. So I think we have one topic left that I think is very important, but everyone is, I think, talking about this a lot. When we talk about aviation and AI, this is safety, right? I mean, aviation is one of the I think safety is so important for aviation because if something happens, people are easily, getting scared. And, the record of aviation and the safety record is just, compared to other modes of transport is just incredible, right? So, and people don't want to sacrifice that. And then the question is, how to what extent can AI help us to, even improve on what we already have?
So I think that there are a couple of fronts there. One is when you talk about predictive maintenance, I think that's quite critical, because one is, of course, it helps you save costs, but also it plays an important role in safety. So
Right.
being able to monitor subtle signs of wear and tear or malfunction that a human eye might miss, AI is something that can detect. And if you look at what Rolls-Royce is doing with their engines, they use predictive analytics across the fleet globally to ensure they have proactive interventions before issues escalate into failures. So that's where you see the use of AI in safety. And then, of course, you have it in cockpits today. So you have AI systems monitoring critical flight parameters in real time, detect anomalies, provide recommendations during emergencies to the captains and first officers, while working with the human pilots. Right. So that's another thing which is where AI is playing a critical role in safety. And of course, in operations, my favorite topic is around airport operations as well. There's a lot of use of computer vision in airside operations to assess and manage safety, detect if that particular, let's say, a vehicle should not be around that position around the aircraft. Someone can directly act and see and investigate what's going on. So if you have computer vision to alert those anomalies at airside operations, that's another thing which also plays a critical role around safety. So yeah, we have multiple facets here. We can deep dive and go on forever, but there's a few areas where I see where AI can really help with safety.
I see. All right. Did I forget something? Did we forget? Is there something that you think we haven't been covering, but it's very important to cover?
No, I think we covered more or less all tangents. In fact, including some points which we didn't intend to cover, especially the deep dive around airlines and airport operations and data collaboration, which is one of the challenges in the industry has always faced. So, which is very good, I think. So I think we have. When I look at it from the biggest challenges, I think. We covered environmental impact. We covered optimization of costs, improving service quality. I think that's something that we spoke of. And I know you spoke about dynamic pricing. I would term it differently, affordability as well, and safety. So I think we have covered enough ground, I think, around AI, and I think it's going to continuously evolve as in the coming months and years. So I see
it's exciting. The things that are happening are really, it's there's a lot going on, and it's exciting times, I would say.
Exactly. And I think in closing, I would say that going back to collaboration, this cannot happen. Innovation cannot happen without collaboration between the stakeholders, airlines, airports, ground operators, the tech companies, researchers, regulators. I think these guys, we need to work together to unlock the potential for travelers and to work towards sustainability. I think these are the main, this is my take around making and driving this technology to benefit this vertical.